Shalom, everybody. Good morning to you. This is Bill Bullock, and I'm coming to you from Texarkana, USA. I'm coming to you from Texarkana, USA, from the offices of the Biblical Lifestyle Center here. I am about a day early, I understand, but since I will be unable to broadcast on tomorrow, the Shabbat, I will go ahead and speak to you. For those of you in the Far East, for Philippines and Australia, my friends in New Zealand, also throughout the world, South Africa, and all the others, Israel, Great Britain, Ireland, and also, of course, Scotland. Thank you for all my friends in America. Welcome to our discussion of the 51st Parsha of Torah, Parsha Nitzavim. The standing ones. You are standing ones is how this parsha starts. We're going to be discussing it for a while this morning, and so it'll be sort of an introduction, hopefully, to the greater study that you'll have on the Sabbath. The passage in question, which is called Parsha Nitzavim, is actually Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 10, as we know it in the Western world, and between that and Deuteronomy 30, verse 20. So only a little bit less than 2 chapters worth. But boy, are these 2 chapters packed. This is the culmination of Torah. This is the reason Torah has been given to us in the first place, the reason it has been so meticulously held and contained and sustained and protected and kept secure for all these centuries, even millennia, and why it still remains its relevance today, because this parsha is what everything has been building toward. We are at a very holy moment, a moment of commitment, a moment of refocusing, a moment when the last outcry, basically, of the prophet Moshe, known in the Western world as Moses, has begun to release over us a call to either a life of abundance, a life of high-level impact and goodness, or some other life if we choose the opposite direction. So I call this the Parsha of divine invitation to the highest level of life that a human being can live and beyond. That is our invitation. That's what's on the table. Respondez, s'il vous plaît, RSVP. All right, so if we want to understand why this is so important, we have to understand the coincidence, the coinciding of the calendar of the Creator, the Moedim calendar as it's called in the Hebrew, but the calendar of appointed days. Scheduled events in time when the Creator meets, interacts with us, and calls us to next phase kind of an approach. Briefing sessions that are set apart in the timing of the Holy One for us to begin to reconnect with His ways, His thoughts. And He has set these calendar events in place. And so there's that calendar, but there's also the calendar of the seed time and the harvest, the agricultural calendar. Whenever we begin in the year, at least creation's year, with nothing, but then we begin to plow, and then we begin to plan, and then we begin to sow, and then we begin to see the first fruits begin to take place. Then we see different agricultural seasons take place and harvests occur. And so we have that season coinciding with the season of the Moedim, or the festivals, or the divine appointments the Holy One has ordained. And then we have both of those coinciding as well with the season of the Torah cycle. Actually, the Torah cycle, as it's been designed, correlates directly with the harvest seasons. We will read certain things at certain times because it's the harvest season for that. It also correlates directly to the season of the Moedim, because they relate directly to that. So agricultural, Moedim based, and also the Torah cycle where we are. Well, we're here close to the end of the Torah cycle. Parsha Nitzavim, corresponds with an upcoming day. A day, what is the day? The first one that we'll deal with this early next week is Yom Teruah. The world has come to call it Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. I can talk to you about why the Holy One called it Yom Teruah, and men call it Rosh Hashanah. But we can get into that later, and perhaps I'll have another session to deal with you today about Yom Teruah, Rosh Hashanah, and what its significance is. But this is the first day coming, and then beyond that, the next 10 days will be what's known as the days of awe or reverent submission and surrender. And then we have the 10th day being Yom Kippur or Yom HaKippurim. In Hebrew, the idea of this is the day of culmination of the next year's cycle, what we're going to be doing in the next year's cycle, or not, as the case may be. And then we get 4 more days, and then we're in the season of what's called Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, as the English people have tended to call it, when we basically resurrender to and submit to the leadership, the guidance, and the overshadowing presence of the Creator of the universe, and begin to deploy into the mission to which He has called us, the mission fields to which He has called us in the coming year. Okay, so we have these events are all coinciding. Where are we? Well, that's part of the process. So we also, to get us ready, we are in week number 7 of consolation, the final culmination of the weeks of consolation. We will be reading from Isaiah chapter 61, verses 10 and following, and then through 63, verse 9, I believe it is. And basically the themes of those will be amazing. This will be a culmination of all the 7 haftarot of consolation that we've been reading. Basically, if I could sum it up in a few words, it's time, beloved, and deploy. Go back and read, if you would, Isaiah 61:10 through 63:9, and hopefully you'll get a picture of this is how it ends. This is the great end game. Well, and then finally, we're week number 8 of Sefer Devarim, of the Moshe's speeches on the plains that explain his revelation stream, explain this is why the Torah is the foundation of all revelation, against which all other revelations or information or education anyone could possibly receive is to be measured. This Torah is the gold standard. It is the spring out of which the water of life flows, and therefore we don't judge the Torah based upon some other part of the book or some other writings of somebody else, or science or medicine or education or technology or whatever. We view all things through the lens of the Torah. This is week 8, the Messianic week, basically, New Beginnings week of Sefer Devarim. And so we have come to Moshe's great new day, the great choose this day section of his discourse. Choose this day. We will be called upon to choose this day, and that will be the divine invitation that we've talked about. Okay, we have to understand that when you cut through all the religion, and you cut through all the arrogant theology of everybody that's what theology makes you arrogant, because you think you know things. When you cut through all that stuff and you get to the basics, the basic issue of all of spiritual life is that every human being is faced with an ultimate challenge. How will we live? How will we approach life? What legacy will we leave behind? What impact will there be upon our life? Will we live a well-lived human life? And if so, who will define what a well-lived human life is? That's the ultimate basis of all spiritual life. So we're going to face that in Moshe's discourse here. He wants us all to come to this point of the year, agriculturally, also from a standpoint of the divine signpost or signs of the times the Holy One has given to us, and also from the standpoint of the Torah itself, and say, do you know what a well-lived life looks like in the Creator of the universe's eyes? Do you want to live a well-lived life? Do you want to follow the Holy One's way? Or are you satisfied just living like other people, other nations, with a belief system, with a set of doctrines and theologies that kind of give you some level of peace, which I call these, usually they're fig leaves that we put on ourselves to make us feel not naked when we talk to God? Is that what you want? Or do you want to live the ultimate purpose for which you were born? Do you want to carry forth the potential and the callings that the Holy One placed upon your life when you were born? Do you want that for your children? Do you want that for your family and your household? Do you want that for your spouse? Do you want that for your friends? Do you want that for all the spheres of influence you impact? Your market, your community, your faith community? Do you want to know and do you want to serve the will of the Holy One? Or are you satisfied just doing philosophy, ideology, politics, religion, and business the way the rest of the world does? So we have to kind of come to a point of truth, a point of on the carpet, called roll call. Who are you? Where are you? This is sort of the reminiscent of the issue of Moshe, of Adam being called. Adam, where are you? Ayeka, the Holy One said in the garden. Well, where are we? What do we think being fruitful looks like? What do we think tending and keeping that which the Holy One has entrusted to us involves? What do we think being fruitful and multiplying, as he told the man in the beginning of the creation, being fruitful and multiplying, what do you think that looks like? How do you think it works its way out in real time? Filling the earth, subduing it, exercising dominion over all moving things, all parts of the ecosystem, in subjection to the great plan. What does that look like? What will it consist of in real time? Those are the things the Holy One will be bringing forth through Moshe in Parsha Nitzavim. What would it look like if the Holy One blessed and empowered and called us and we followed his path, versus what it looks like whenever we just try to do our own thing in our own way, according to our own ideas, human intellect, human thinking, what culture has told us, what our ethnicities have taught us, what our ideologies have provided for us. What if we actually did it the Holy One's way? Where would we think we are right now? And where would we think we need to go? And what would we need to do to get there? So Moshe will tell us in Parsha Nitzavim that it's time to choose your pathway. He will say choose. The word choose will be the key factor in the whole Parsha. Choose. You have the option. You don't have to just go along and be carried along by a stream, by some sort of what you may think of as fate. You have the option to choose optimally. Choose the way of the Holy One. Choose his words, his instructions, his lifestyle that he ordained. Or you can go like the rest of the nations and the rest of religions and just choose a creed, a belief system. But choose. Choose today your pathway. Will you be a pilgrim? A passionate pilgrim following the call up to Jerusalem, up to the hill of the Holy One, where his Torah is released and where he sends forth the blessings to the nations? Or will you be a prodigal? Will you just want to go and find what feels good to you, what you feel like is your truth? What will you be, a pilgrim or a prodigal? Choose. That's the key factor. Will you be a faithful ambassador, servant, messenger of the kingdom of heaven? Or will you be a thrill-seeking, pleasure-seeking pirate, taking all you can and leaving nothing behind? Nitzavim is the first word, basic, the Parsha, first major phrase of the Parsha. Nitzavim, this is a Parsha of crossing over into covenant. Most people don't really understand covenant unless you were born into a covenant, unless you become part of it and you nurtured in the covenant relationship. You tend to think life is just by chance or by all maybe you have a good day with the Creator, or you have a bad day with the Creator. You have a good day with your wife. You have a bad day with your wife or husband. It's just happenstance, and some days it's better than others. No, a covenant is this is a pattern that we follow, and this is a sure, confident expectation of relationship. Ups and downs may take place, but the direction is constant, and the purpose is understood and shared, and the commitment is unshakable. That's covenant life, and that's where we are called into crossover from religion into covenant, crossover from theology into covenant, crossover from a sense of entitlement or a sense of victimization, whatever our sense may be in our natural physical flesh or our pseudo-intellect, cross over from intellectualism into covenant, because covenant is the commitment to serve the Creator of the universe. We are in covenant with him not just in some sort of weird relationship with him like you do whenever you're dating or something like that. So, choose. What kind of life? Now, to understand the significance of this, I want to point you to what I mentioned earlier about the Haftarah. The 7 Haftarah of consolation conclude this week with Isaiah 61:10 through 63:9. I'm not going to read it all because it's too long, but I will encourage you to read it to yourself. This is the culmination of the plan, the end-game plan of the Holy One. And so here we'll start just a few words out of the beginning. And it starts out after all we've read before, and all the other Haftarahs, all the things we've read last week in chapter 60. We've read from 54, from 55, we've read from 40, we've read from different passages, 49, different portions already to kind of piece together what the end-game plan of the Holy One. And here's the culmination, and here's the message of the prophet. And he's calling us all to join him in this. I will greatly, here it is, I will greatly rejoice in the Holy One. That's the end game. I will greatly rejoice in the Holy One. Now let's go flesh it out. My soul, my mind, my will, my emotions will be joyful in my God, for he has clothed me with Bechdei Yesha, garments of salvation, as it's called in the English language. He has covered me with robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorns herself with jewels. For as the earth brings forth its bud, as the garden causes the things that are grown in it to spring forth, so the Holy One, God, will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before Kol HaGoyim, all the nations, all the ethnicities, all the people. This is not just one thing for some lineal descendants of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. This is an endgame that involves the entire race, species of mankind, and also all of creation. So it begins and goes on. For Zion's sake, in verse 62, verse 1, it continues the same thing. For Zion's sake, I will not hold my peace, my shalom. And for Jerusalem's sake, I will not rest until her righteousness goes forth as brightness. That's Zion, that's Jerusalem. Until the righteousness of Zion and Jerusalem is shown forth in its brightness. Ve'yeshua the Yeshua of her, and the Yeshua, her Yeshua, as a lamp that burns. And the Gentiles, the Goyim, the nations will see your righteousness. The Holy One speaks now to Bnei Israel, to the children of Israel, the sons and daughters of the covenant. The Gentiles, the nations will see your righteousness, and all kings will see your glory. And you will be called by a new name. And the mouth of the Holy One will call it, will name it. You will become a crown of glory biyad, in the hand of the Holy One, and a royal diadem on the palm of the Holy One. You will no longer be called forsaken, nor will your land anymore be called desolate or desert, but you will be called Chesibah, and your land Beulah, married, for the Holy One delights in you, and your land will be taken by him to wife. For as a young man marries a virgin, so will your sons marry you. And as a bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so will your God rejoice over you. And a little bit further, go through the gates. Prepare the way for the people. Build up the highway. Deploy, get ready. Take out the stones. Lift up a banner for the peoples to follow, to rally around. This is our mission. Indeed, the Holy One has proclaimed to the end of the world, say to the daughter of Zion, surely your Yeshua is coming. Surely your salvation is coming. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work is before him. And they will call you the holy people, the redeemed of the Holy One. And you will be called sought out, a city not forsaken. I hope you're caught up. I hope you catch the drift of what he's saying in this in-game declaration. And now to get there, we'll need to get back into Parsha Nitzavim and the choice we have to make. Do we want what he's just said over us, proclaimed over us? Do we want that to be a true statement? Do we want that to come through in our lives, in our bloodlines, in our households, in our age, in our day? Or are we content with the things the world offers us, and the theologies offer us, and the religions of the world offer us? What do we want? And we make a choice today. Okay, let's do our call to worship before we get too deep into this. Let's join me. If you know the song, the singing of it, you may join. If not, just kind of relax and listen. Let the Hebrew words waft over and awaken your spirit, while you don't even need your English words to be spoken to awaken your mind. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vayet. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bakar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. So now open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth, so do not hide your commandments from us. All right, as we get started with the readings, let me give you context. Kitavo, the previous parsha, the lead-up parsha, the first climax of the whole book, the first crescendo of Moshe, showing the end day's harvest. Kitavo ended with Deuteronomy 29:9, and it said this: Therefore, keep, Hebrew, shamar, treasure, cherish, and therefore guard the words of this covenant. You see the the importance, the critical nature of covenant. If you don't get covenant, you won't understand why this is so important. Therefore, keep, shamar, treasure, cherish, and carefully guard the words of this covenant. And asad them, do them, make them, build them like a structure that you're making your life, building your life around. Make them the substance of everything you do, in order that you may prosper, sakal, be beautiful, be excellent, be fruitful, and reach the fullness in all that you do. So, with that being said, that's how we last week ended the last message. We're going to start into the great crescendo now. We have reached a critical crossroads as we do so. Will we take the narrow road of the covenant, which leads to life, to peace, to joy, to hope, to meaning, to impact upon our world, to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth? Or will we instead take the broad path that leads to destruction, the broad path of self-will, the broad path of cultural norms, the broad path of meeting social expectations, the broad path of theology and religion, the broad path of philosophy and ideology, the broad path of political theory? Which will we take? Which will we take? This is our time. It's our time to choose. The opening words of Nitzavim of this week's parsha come this way. They are our covenant identity declarations. You should find yourself in these words. Here it starts, Moshe's call, invitation to significance in life, to a well-lived life. Atim Nitzavim hayom kulachem. Atem Nitzavim hayom kulachem. You are all standing. You are all standers today. All of you. Lifnei Adonai Elohechem. Before the presence and the face of the Holy One, your God. You are all standing today, all of you, as a one unit, in unity, before the face and the presence of the Holy One, your God. And then it's going to define us in different levels of what a place we stand. Roshekim, Shivatekim, Zignekim, Shotarekim. There will be some of you are tribal leaders. Some of you are elders. Some of you are scribes and officials. And then there's Kol Ish Yisrael, every man of Israel. See, there is a call going out. There is an invitation being issued, and all are invited. Many are called, but few will be chosen. Now, how you identify yourself or define yourself within this group, don't forget this: you're part of this group. There is no separate ways of looking at it. We will not be divided. We will not be separated. We have one person to answer to, And we have one way of answering to that person. That will be what we face. The story goes on. The listing of people who are present for this moment, this great moment of invitation. Tachem v'shekem, your shenekem, your infants, your babies, your crawling ones, and your wives. V'gureka asher bekerev makneka, and the foreigners, those who are not of the natural bloodlines of Bnei Israel, who join, approach your camp, who come near you, who are drawn to you and draw themselves to you. So we got your own children, your own babies, your wives, your families, and then there's this other group, this foreigners are called, and also standing before the Holy One. We are also standers. We're also unified in our appearance before the Holy One, our God. Let me get my glasses so I can read more carefully in this Hebrew. Mechotev et zeka et shoev me'imeka, from the hewer of your wood, your trees, to the drawer of your waters. Whatever level of service any person may have, whatever their job, their vocation, whatever their sense of self-worth, whatever they do that makes themselves feel valuable, all are gathered together, all standing before the face of the Creator of the universe. Okay, it goes on. La uvareka bevrit Adonai Eloheka, for you are crossing over. Your crossing is going on over into the covenant with the Holy One, your God. Uve'e'alatu asher Adonai Eloheka koret imcha hayom, and with the oath, into the oath that He is making with you today. Pen yesh bachem ish o isha o mishpacha o shevet. There must not be of you. This is a later portion here. There must not be of you any man, woman, or family, or tribe. Asher levavo foneh hayom me'im Adonai Eloheinu, whose heart one day strays from the Holy One, our God. Lelech la'avod et Elohei hagoyim hahem, and then who goes and serves the gods that the nations serve. Pen yesh bachem shoresh porei rosh va'la'ana, and there must not be of you a root whose fruit is gall or wormwood. All right, so now we are ready to talk. Nitzavim means standing ones, raised up ones, resolute ones, ones who are taking a stand. Are you ready to make your commitment and take your stand? Because that's what Torah has been preparing us to do. Moshe wants us ready to go into the land. We had a covenant of the wilderness, which we got at Sinai. The same covenant, the new renewed version of that covenant is the same covenant, but now being applied to a different environment, to a new phase. And the same covenant is called a new covenant, a Chadash, but because it's a new phase of where we will involve. It won't be in the wilderness anymore. We'll be in the land, and we will be in the nations as we're sent out into exile, sown as seed into the nations to bring forth the great end-time harvest. So Nitzavim means persons of a singular, unifying focus, persons clothed in humility. And it comes from the verb natsav, which means to be raised up and assigned to and set in a strategic position. The first time we encountered this was Genesis chapter 18, verse 2. In that situation, the angels, the Melachim of heaven, came with the Holy One to visit Abraham's tent, and they were called Nitzavim. Okay? So they were standing ones, come with a purpose, with humility, with a unifying focus of a singular purpose and intent. So, how do you see yourself and your fellow men, beloved? I mean, do you see yourself as a part of a certain group or another group? Do you see yourself? Do you label yourself and follow the labels of the world? Are you tie yourself to that? Do you bind yourself, limit yourself by the labels that men apply? Are you see yourself as being a unified whole in front of the face of the Holy One, being assigned duties and responsibilities and being sent out to deploy in the world? See, we are not a collection of randomly conjoined molecules. We are not who we think we are. We are not anything by or where we are or as we are by the vagaries of chance or by our own strength. We have been ordained to stand for the Holy One, and we are prepared to do that if we make the choice to go forward. We are products of intelligent design. We know that, right? We are products of careful crafting and training and development. We have been all our life in a development protocol. No matter how old we are, we're in a process now. We have not reached the fulfillment. We are being called into the fulfillment, and one step at a time. We are part of a great call and response plan. Individually and collectively, we have been brought forth for such a time as this, in such an age as this, in such a place as we may live. The basic outline of the 51st Parsha is that we're going to have a formal refreshment, a renewal of the covenant that was made at Sinai. The covenant which incorporated and extended the Abrahamic covenant, which was the ultimate beginning covenant, and the Noahic covenant, which these are not different covenants. It's all part of the same grand plan. You don't replace old covenants with new ones. You enhance the old covenants. You begin to open new phases of operation to make the old, as we call it, old. It's not old, it's eternal. To make the eternal to come forth in a new way, show forth in a new way. That's what a new covenant, as we may think of it in English or Western world, really means. In the Hebrew, it's chadash. It means it becomes fresh and new, not something that has never existed before, something that is now alive in ways it was never alive, or perceived at least to be alive by the world. So the first thing is the formal renewal of the covenant. That's 29:10 through 28. Then we'll have the prophetic outline of history. Moshe is going to tell us what the rest of the ages of the world are going to look like. It's kind of like Yeshua's Olivet discourse. What's going to happen? He doesn't get specific as most people would want. He is telling you these cycles will repeat themselves over and over again. And there is a culmination point. There is a point at which the Holy One will intervene, and he will cause great things to happen that the world will not understand, that the theologies will not be able to account for, that the ideologies and political theories will not be able to deal with, because his plan is greater than all those things. The prophetic outline of history is chapter 30, verses 1 through, say, 20. And then the final aspect of Parsha, Nitzavim, is the critical moment of decision. Moshe will call us to actually not just hear these words that he's speaking, not just consider the options we have before us, but to make a commitment to say yes to the Holy One and to his narrow path and to his road to excellence and road to superior and optimal lifestyle, or to choose something else, but we won't be called to a moment of choice. And his famous words will be, choose life, that you and your seed may live. All right. There are three issues, basically, that go with these themes. The first one is choose the pathways we will make. I kind of covered this with choose the pathways you will take, and choose this day. The time for dallying, the time for consideration, the time for negotiation is over. This, as we get into, and this is what Yom Teruah, the day of trumpets, as we call it by tradition. This is that day, and we are at that day. We're at the day of finalizing our harvest of the year, the harvest of the trees and the vines. We've already had the harvest of the grains, but now we have the trees and the vines and the bringing forth that process. At this day, as this is going on, these cycles are repeating, and we're now at the harvest season as opposed to the seed time season. This is the message we're going to hear. Behold, re'eh in Hebrew. Moshe is going to say, re'eh, behold, I have set before you today, before your faces, before your presence today, et ha'chaim ve'et ha'tov, unto lives, abundant lives, and unto goodness. I have set before you, in English, life and good, but in the Hebrew, so much more than that. The entire open doors to lives of different layers and ways, and of goodness, all the goodness of the Holy One will pass before us. I've set that before you today, but I've also set before you et hamut ve'et ha'ara, the ways, the unto death, the ways to get to death, and the ways to get to calamitous events that flow from self-will, doing what we think is right, or what we think is moral, or what we think is just, or what we think is fair, or what we think will somehow please us. We have these two choices before us, this way, that way. The Holy One's way of Et Haim, the Et Hatov, or the flesh's way of the Et Hamut, the Et Hara. Well, and Moshe goes forward. I've done this by commanding you today to love the Holy One your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments. These are the three elements of what he's going to say. To love the Holy One your God, that means you'll walk in his ways. That means you will keep his commandments. There is no separating his commandments from loving him. And Yeshua taught it very clearly. Yeshua made it more clear than even anybody in the Torah. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. You can't separate the love of the Holy One from the keeping of his commandments. And that's all because we want to walk in his ways. His ways are where he is. His ways are what he's doing, and we want to do that. So I command you this day, Moshe says, to love the Holy One your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments, his statutes, and his judgments, in order that you may live and multiply, and that the Holy One your God can bless you at the level, in the land to which you go to possess. He goes further a little bit later and says, I call heaven and earth as the witnesses today. Everything must have 2 or 3 witnesses. I call heaven and earth as witnesses today. This is your day of decision. Against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, becharta ha'im, choose the ways of life. Choose the life emanations of the Torah, that both you and your descendants may live, in order that it may be proven that you love the Holy One your God, that you shema his voice, you cherish, you listen to, you carefully tune your heart to, and adjust your cadence and your movements and your actions and your thoughts and your words to his voice, and that you may cling to him, become one with him, like in a marriage relationship, becoming one flesh with him, one spirit with him, that you may cling to him, for he is your life, and he is the length of your days. Do you cling to him like that, or do you take him as you feel appropriate, when you want to, when your religion or your tradition tells you to do so? No, he is your life, and he is the substance and the length of your days. In order that you may dwell in the land, Moshe says, that the Holy One has sworn to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov. This is not just about what happened in Egypt, getting us free from Egypt. It's not about what happened at Sinai. This goes all the way back to Abraham. And we can't disconnect what happened, what the promises made to Abraham from the promises were made at Sinai, or the commitments that were made at Sinai, or the commitments are being made now. It's all one story. It's all one song. They are not separate. They cannot be divided. Issue number 2, after issue number 1 being the plan for this day, now he wants to tell us about something beautiful and marvelous, a great mystery, the plan of redemption that will occur in that day. The first issue had to do with this day, the second issue with that day. There is a day coming in the future. We're aiming in that direction. Even if we do make the wrong choice today, there's another day coming in the future. That's the Yom Kippur, if you want to just acknowledge it. One is the Yom Teruah, this day, and that's the day of trumpets. And another is the day of Kippur. That is that day. And these are pictures. These are illustrations. These are signposts, covenant signs to remind us and keep before our children of all times, for all ages. And so Moshe says in regard to that day, the plan of redemption in that day, now it will come to pass, when all these things come upon you, that is the blessings and the curse, that I've set before you, depending on which way you choose, and you call them to mind among the nations where the Holy One your God drives you. He promises there will be an exile. There will be a great diaspora, a sending out. So when you call them to mind, when they come upon you, you call them to mind in the lands of the Gentiles. And then the next thing is when you return to make teshuvah, make a turning back to the Holy One your God, and you begin to shema his voice, and do so according to everything that he, Moshe, commands you today. When you do that, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul, then the Holy One, your God, will do something. He will intervene. He will bring you back from captivity, and you will have compassion. He will have compassion on you, and he will gather you once again from all the nations where the Holy One, your God, has sent you, scattered you like seed to be sown into the harvest at a later date. This is the plan of redemption. Will we, though, this is our question today, will we walk in covenant with the Creator of the universe, with his priorities? according to his terms? Or will we choose the way of self-will? Will we stumble around like drunk men in religion, in mindsets and traditions that we absorb from our communities, from our ethnicities, from our cultures, from our peer groups, from our preferred ideologies, from our religious traditions and histories? Or will we receive his ways? Will we just be receivers and rebroadcasters of propaganda from the governments? Will we be slaves to technology and science and medicine? Or will we walk in covenant with the Holy One? Covenant is so important to us. Now, brit in Hebrew, the word in Hebrew is brit. So we have taken that and turned it into covenant in the Western world. It's almost an arrogance that we do because we left the Hebrew, the beautiful word brit. Brit comes from a verb, as do all Hebrew words. And they come from a shorish. There's 3 letters. You can't take 2. You have to take all 3. You can't just pick and choose which letters you want to choose when you're defining Hebrew terms. So the Hebrew shorish, the root that consists of 3 consonants, is bara. It's very familiar. We should know this word. It means to cut away from a larger herd or flock. The Holy One barad, the world, the earth, the heavens and the earth, in Genesis 1. This is the same word. Berit means we're going to be part of something being cut apart from a larger herd flock. Berit means that covenant with God means that we are chosen to be apart from other aspects of the human race, human species, which to serve a specific purpose. Not that we're better than they are, not that we're more loved than they are, but that we do have a certain level of responsibility to act as a model, as a representative, as a testimony of the goodness of God. And so there is this larger herd flock that's being divided in the Barai. Covenant means we are set apart from the rest of the world for strategic ecosystem management purposes. Now, and then to bara means to be identified as part of the cut out group, the set aside group, the called forth group, and draw our identity and draw our connection with one another and with the Holy One through this covenant, through the terms and conditions, the directions that he has put. That's the laws, the commandments, the ordinances, the instructions, all the things he's given to us, even the judgments, all the things he's given to us in the Torah. This is the mode of setting forth the covenant. And it was the same, if you can look back into the stories of Abraham, you can see that he followed the Holy One's Torah. Even though it doesn't say he ever took it, he followed it, the Torah. Now this is the kind of thing we had to learn, that it doesn't go away. It didn't come suddenly on the earth and then go away when Yeshua came. This is the eternal covenant way. This is the pathway. Manifesting the allegiance, shows the level of allegiance we have to the Holy One. It doesn't guarantee some sort of entry into heaven when you die. This is about how we live on earth and how we do his mission, do his will upon the earth. The idea of speaking and thinking and acting and interacting with the world as he directs. It means receiving, displaying, and honorably representing, and then multiplying all the great shepherd's brand, to his ways of doing things, showing the world what he is like and what he wants for the world. Covenant Berit, it means all these things and so much more. The ultimate challenge of every human being, choosing between a well-lived life and a wasted one. Behold, Re'eh natati lefnecha hayom. I set before you today et ha'chaim be'et hatov, the superlative, excellent, optimal life, a series of lives, ve'et hatov, and the goodness, all the goodness. But I also set before you, if you choose it, ve'et hamavet ve'et ha'ara, the death, the dying, the spiral that comes from self-absorption and flesh obsession. Now, this calling, this invitation has been issued. We are called to be his nation. He is our ultimate authority and sovereign, as he swore to our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he would do. Now he says that it is not with you alone that I'm making this covenant. that I'm calling you to cross over into covenant the way Abraham did, the way we did at Sinai, the way now I did not you alone, the people standing there in that particular day. And I'm doing that. He says, but with him who stands here with us today before the Holy One our God, and also with him who is not here with us this day. There's a great inclusive call going out to all mankind. B'nai Israel is the first recipient of the call. First to the Jew, then to the Gentile. But it is not exclusive to the Jew. It is a matter of calling to your purpose, your destiny, the reason and the potential for which you were born. If you want that, if you're ready, he says today is your day. Make your commitment. Follow his path. Join yourself to him. If you wonder where, as a foreigner, as someone not born into the bloodline of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as they're called in English, if you're wondering where you stand in regard to that, read Isaiah chapter 56. Take off your lenses before you read it. Read Isaiah 56 very slowly, very carefully. Listen to what is said there about the foreigners and the holy ones of you and approach in the end of days toward the foreigners. Well, this is the end of our session for Parsha Nitzavim. As I say, I will be gone tomorrow, so I hope you have this to review and consult. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have prayer requests, if you just want to talk, please leave your name and the place from which you're viewing or interpreting this. And in the meanwhile, for all my friends, good Sabbath, Shabbat Shalom. Shalom to you. Amen.